Think we're live. Good morning. Al Ingalls here at pressure-free.com. I'm outside at my treehouse. Lots of trees here. And topic today, social anxiety. I had a client say to me once, Al, people stress me out. It's people. And as I reflected on that and thought about it, there's so many subtle and not so subtle ways that people can trigger us or cause us to feel anxious. So there's a continuum of social anxiety that I see. And there's some clues as to whether or not you might be triggering the stress response because of social situations. And one of the clues is if you go to some event, a social event, and you meet someone and a few seconds later you can't remember their name, you can't recall their name, that's one of the clues. Another clue would be just feeling some sort of distress in your body when you're talking to a certain person. And it might not be so much what they're saying, but it could be the tone of their voice that's causing you to trigger the stress response. That's something that I have noticed quite a bit with myself, with clients, with family members. If there's any sort of tension in the voice from the person who's talking to you, or a sense that you're being criticized or that you're not measuring up, those can be reasons why you're just going to be right on the edge to release those hormones. And so those are just some of the clues that I have noticed over the years for people. And there's all sorts of little jokes, like certain people you can be with for about 3 minutes, some for 3 hours, some for 3 months, some for 3 years, some for 30 years, right? But what is that really about? I think it's about whether or not we sense any sort of connection, of course, but also if we feel any sort of threat from them, any sort of competition. One of the tools that I teach my clients is called the spirit of contribution. I've mentioned it several times on my show. If you watch me frequently, I'll try to go a little deeper with it this time in terms of people. So, the spirit of contribution is a tool I developed from a book called The Science of Being Rich by Wallace Wattles. Highly recommend Wallace Wattles' work. And this tool, it came out of the idea that if we're in the spirit of competition, so we're moving this way, we have a little bit of forcefulness with us. Depending on the person, they may come right back at us with force. But if you're in a state of contribution, there'll be people will be much less apt to want to push back to your ideas, to what you're trying to do in the world, and even who you are walking into a room. I'm a highly competitive person. Like I have my son's marathon jacket on, okay? I don't run marathons, but boy, do I love this jacket. He gave it to me, so it's a gift. But when I was a rower for Michigan and in all my violin playing and auditions, highly, highly competitive, always striving to be better. And there's a difference between striving to be better and and competing with a force that wants people to push back at you. Even if you're not pushing against another human, but even trying too hard yourself. If you try too hard yourself, you'll trigger the stress response. So with contribution, the way I think about it is it's an open hand where I'm just sharing my gifts and talents freely with no fear of loss. And I'm also walking into the room and I don't have to prove myself. I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to prove my value. I'm walking into a room with a calm sense of who I am and what my talents are. And if they come to the fore in a conversation, then it's just natural. I'm not having to prove to anybody. Um, I think we get set up in school to have these feelings like we have to know things. And that can breed this kind of sense of I need to know it all. And then that breeds into I'm a know-it-all. So many people that I coach and so many of my friends, we all raise our hands. It's like, yeah, that's how we were raised, and that's how we think that we're going to get ahead. But what happens with that is pushback. I remember I was coaching a client who she is a program director for a large operation, and she was the same with the same boss for 30 years. And as there's a lot of other program directors, so when she proposes a particular program, it's a thumbs up, thumbs down, depending on all these other program directors. So literally in competition with all these other people. And so she always felt like it was a fight to get her ideas across, a fight to get her program funded. So when I was working with her, I suggested that instead of going in like it's a fight, to go in as if all she's doing is contributing an idea and see what might happen. So that's exactly what she did. And I practice contribution when I cross thresholds, like even into my home, um, into an office, into onto a stage. Like, how can I contribute? Is the phrase going on in my head, the question, how can I contribute here to the best of my ability? So that's what she did that day. And she wrote this huge email to me after the meeting. She said that her program was the program that her boss instantly loved it, fully funded it. They started brainstorming how they could make it even bigger. Like, it was a complete transformation from any other time she had brought a program in. So then when we got together, I asked her, I said, so who was different? And she wanted to say like he was different, but actually she brought a different energy. When you bring the spirit of contribution into a marathon, into a race, into a meeting, into a conversation, then you're much less apt to have that edge in your voice and that kind of forcefulness. Instead, it's like you're deeply empowered on the inside and people lean in. They come into you versus you having to force your ideas out. So that has been so helpful to so many of my clients, and it's actually lowered social anxiety for so many of my clients because they're no longer trying to be the one that has to have the answer, have to prove themselves. I'll give you another tip here too. I work with a really wonderful writing and speaking coach with my last book, The Pressure Free CEO. Brian Morgan was incredibly helpful. So he has a writing program with different levels called Think Deeply, Write Clearly. So that intrigued me. And also my work intrigued him. So been my writing coach for 3 years now. And through that, one of the things that I have learned is, and that I've kind of morphed it into a tool for my clients. And I was working with an HR director who used this tool where someone asks you a question, and to really answer the question well, you would need to give it some thought. Okay, you need to think deeply. Okay, but people expect instant answers today, thanks to this little thing and the computer that I'm on. We expect very quick answers. And so what I suggested to my client is that if you get a question from, it could be your boss, it could be an employee, a team member who's going through something and needs some help, and you need to give it some thought and maybe even look up some things, you can answer them in that moment. You can answer, I'm going to need to give some thought to that. Is that okay with you? I really want to come back with an answer that's going to be impactful for you. So language that says, I need a moment. I can't give an answer right away. So my client actually had a day in which they could play with that phrasing, play with that idea for several conversations. And the feedback and the experience was so interesting because people were like, they kind of leaned back and they're like, oh, thank goodness, like, you're going to give me a really good answer, right? You're going to give me a thought out answer, which so few people do today. It's like we just give the top of mind answer, but is that the best way to handle a certain problem or situation? I was doing this for years with my violin student. I would ask as they're playing, and they're struggling with a particular phrase, I would ask the question, how can I help them play this more effectively or more beautifully? And that question would just settle in my brain. I might not have an immediate answer. So they're moving through their music And then all of a sudden the light bulb moments would come on. And I would have these really incredible suggestions for them. And sometimes they would say, "How did you think of that?" And so, and I teach them to ask that question too, like, how can I always play this beautifully? Um, how can I handle this with ease? So those impactful, empowering questions will get us answers that we might not have ever thought of if we were trying to just have that knee-jerk answer to things. So that to me is the power of contribution. We're contributing to a solution instead of competing to show how much we know and having like an instant answer. Does that make sense? So if you're going to a social event, let me give you some more tools about like social events or even going to have coffee with someone. There's a lot of stress around just leaving the house sometimes. If you find yourself worried about, oh, what do I wear? Or is it cold outside? Or like if you feel yourself having like a little bit of frenzy moment, wondering about anything regarding going out to have this coffee with someone, maybe it's someone you're meeting for the first time, um, or you're a little worried you're going to be late. There's this little bit of frenzy. That frenzy is a clue that you've triggered the stress response. So if you start to feel one of those questions or one of those thoughts, that's your 10-second moment. That's your 10-second moment and I would go straight to the abs. I would relax my belly. I would smile a little bit and go, oh, isn't that interesting? You can be sarcastic, by the way. Be like, here I go again into a little bit of panic mode before I take off to go to the coffee shop, right? Is there going to be traffic? Is it gonna rain? Do I need an umbrella? Or if you're in New York, is the train running late? Like all these little things can go through your head. And so you've got that 10-second moment. And then you might notice that, okay, you cleared that trigger up, but then all of a sudden you're a little worried about this thing. Or you might be even worried about what you're going to talk about with this person. So all of those little tiny worries. That's why I say some of the social anxiety is very subtle. Okay. Um, I think about students and like what they're wearing to school and if their hair is good enough. Like all the things that they can't control. A lot of things you can't control. How tall you are. Like all these little things can cause us to have these subconscious, constant little social anxieties. And I love to help people uplift, up level that and just notice it and calmly move through it and really be okay with themselves. Like a lot of times people come to me and they'll say, I just really have low self-esteem. This could be an incredible person who's got a really high level job, by the way. Like I really have low self-esteem. I don't really value myself. Questions like that. And so it's really, to me, it's really fun and beautiful to dig into that and figure out, all the little ways we can move that energy so that we believe that we matter. We believe that we deserve a fulfilling life. If you caught the long training that I did with Amy Cohen, Amy did the training. I was there to support. She's my certification client. One of the things she said is that, just really, really making a decision, and it's not easy. It's probably some of the deeper work I do with my clients to move into a frame that, I deserve a beautiful life. I deserve a fulfilling life, no matter what the challenges are. Health challenges, money challenges, relationship challenges, whatever those challenges are. In the end, I like really stand for my clients that they belong. I guess that's the word that's trying to come out of my mouth. Like we belong, and that we deserve to have a really precious life, a beautiful life. And so if that resonates with you and you're like, I would really like to talk with Elle. If you feel that way, please just DM me and I can send you my calendar, or you can just go to my website. You'll see a maroon button at the top and that will take you to my calendar. And first my calendar page and then my calendar where you can find a time. I've actually created a few more times recently. So if you want to pop in my calendar, um, I would love to have a conversation with you. Um, I feel badly when I see people struggling that I know that pressure free could help. And so if you know of somebody who's struggling too, the conversation we have will be totally pressure free. And I will give you some real strategies on it's I call it a strategy call for a reason, because I'll give you some real strategies that I see when you share some things with me. So wish you a great pressure free day. Bye.